Salvete discipuli discipuli. So today we're going to go over the capitulum unde viginti, aka chapter 19, unde viginti, one down from viginti 20. So capitulum unde viginti, fabula. Uh, so this is the main reading called Roma, which we will be looking at. As I read the Latin, I will translate and just kind of take you through my thought process. So this is a little bit longer of a check than just the written keys. However, hopefully it will help you understand how I am thinking through the sentences and help you do the same. Dum scintilla et horatia venusiae anxiae monent. So I hit a verb, and also there's a comma, punctuation. So I've hit the end of a clause. Latin always does that, right? This is just a notate bene. When we hit a verb, and then especially we see the punctuation that's given to us in our text, we know that we've hit the end of a clause. It was like a marker for them. So I'm going to go ahead and translate this chunk. Dum while scintilla and horatia venusiae, that we have a note to the side that says it means et Venusia, which makes sense. It must be locative. Et Venusia anxiously, anxiae, describing both of the ladies, monent, are waiting. So put it all together. While Scintilla and Horatio et Venusia anxiously are waiting, quintus paterque iam novem dies Romam contenderunt. So Quintus, and again I've hit a verb and I've hit a semicolon. Quintus paterque and his father, now or already, iam, novem 9 days, and it's accusative, so 9 days, duration of time. Romam, this is accusative as well, and with places that means that you're going to or toward those, accusative place to which. So at Rome, or to Rome rather, or toward Rome, contendo, contendere, which looks like contend or contention, but usually means to hasten or with the army to march in Latin. So had, pluperfect, errant, hastened to Rome, right? To Rome had hastened. So let's put it all together. Quintus and his father, already for 9 days, toward Rome had hastened. Montes et flumina transierant. And I'll stop there. Again, verb punctuation. The mountains and the rivers, plural. Flumen, fluminous, neuter. That A is always going to be plural, nominative, and accusative. All neuters repeat in the nominative accusative, and they all have A's in the plural nominative and accusative. So the mountains and the rivers, transierant. Trans is across, eo ere is to go, so they went across, very literally. We have errant, so it's pluperfect, so had. So the mountains and the rivers, they had crossed. They had crossed the mountains and the rivers. Do not say the mountains and the rivers had been crossed by them. That's incorrect. While the idea is the same, it makes it passive. So you have to recognize this is an active pluperfect and say they had crossed the mountains and the rivers. If it were passive, I would see the fourth part of this verb plus eram, erat. So I would have transeo, transire, transi, transitus. I would have transiti errant as two separate words, but I don't. So, final translation, they had crossed mountains and rivers. Iter difficile fuerat et laboriosum. So, a journey, difficult, had been, or it had been, pluperfect again, sume se fui plus eram, erat, and laboriosum, it looks like sum, but it also looks like laborious, and there aren't any forms where we're really going to see something like labor plus sum. That doesn't happen as a compound. Compounds, as you learned, are made from the prepositions as a prefix and then the main verb. So this is actually an adjective, and we could say laborious or well, they already have difficult, so we could say even laborious. I think that would be better. Taking hard work, right? So it had been a difficult and laborious journey, would be a nice English translation. Tandem Roma non longe aberrant. Stop, short sentence. Finally, Roma, that is ablative, so away from Rome or from Rome, non not, longe far, aberrant, away from they are, or absent they are. But again, we got to look at tense here. We don't have a fui, so it's not pluperfect. This is actually the imperfect of sum esse. The imperfect of sum esse is aroma raserat when by itself. If we had the third part plus aroma raserat, then we would have pluperfect. So we want to say they were not far, right? They were not far from Rome at last, right? At last they were not far from Rome. Quintus valde fessus erat. Okay, we've hit a verb and a punctuation. Quintus, very tired he was. Sounds very Yoda, right? If we clean it up, Quintus was very tired. Sed pater noli desperare fili inquit. And I do apologize for this odd coloration here that would not go away in the photo, but we can still read it and translate it. But his father, noli, that should signal to you a negative command or imperative. It always starts one. So noli is a negative. It just means like do not. So do not despair, desperare, son, fili, vocative, right? Filius, words ending in US and IUS. US changes to E, like quinte would be the vocative of his name if we were calling him. Here he's talking directly, Flaccus is talking directly to him, the father's talking to him. So fili, son, it changes to an I. He says, iter paene confectum est. The journey almost is finished. Confectus, confecta, confectum est is finished. So it mimics a perfect passive. So if you said has been finished, that would also be fine. Confectus is from a version of facio. So you could say the journey almost has been finished, but we also have looked at confectus as an adjective and just a pure adjective. So if you took it that way, you would say the journey is almost finished. Either would be fine. Roma non longe obsumus. From Rome, not far. Obsumus. Now we do have the present tense of this. We are. So we are not far from. Okay. Postridie moenia urbis conspexerunt et festinaverunt ad portas. So I didn't stop at conspexerunt because I felt like I would need to continue the rest of the sentence and it wasn't very long, so I kind of scanned ahead. But typically we would have stopped. Postridie moenia urbis conspexerunt et. So there isn't a punctuation, but there is a conjunction. And normally I would suggest stopping here. So we'll translate this first little part. The next day, literally post after die day. So the next day, moenia urbis, the walls of the city, conspexerunt, they saw. A runt with a U being perfect tense. Or they caught sight of, right? This is from specto spectare. It's a compound verb. So they're looking at it together. Usually it's translated as caught sight of. So if we put that chunk together, the next day the walls of the city they caught sight of. and festen verunt oder portas, and they hurried, also perfect tense, erunt, to the gates. Nox jam venerat cum urpim intraverunt. Period. Verb, we're stopping. Night now venerat had, right, perfect, come, venio. Cum is either when or with. We learned it can be when, so we need to look at the next word, urpim. Okay, so it's probably when, because it has to take ablative when it's with. So when the city intraverunt, they entered. Let's put it all together. Night now had come when they entered the city. Parvam calponam invenerunt. And we stop there. Parum, we know, means small. And you've got a footnote to the side for calponum, which you can't see, but it translates to inn. And inn in the sense of a like tavern or kind of like a hotel-like place, right? So a small, and this is accusative, so it won't be your subject, invenerunt, they came upon, or they found, right? We have another compound verb, in plus venio, so venio is to come, and in is on or in, so they're like, oh, and they found it. So that's where we get the definition for that word. So they found a small inn. Cainaverunt, they dined. Et post cainum continuo dormiverunt. They dined, and after dinner, continuously or for a while, right? Continuo dormiverunt. They slept. Prima luce flocus quintum excitavit. And I'm going to stop because I have a verb and an et to conjunction. At first light, ablative, prima luce, at first light, flocus, quintum direct object, excitavit, excited or aroused, woke him up. So at first light, Flaccus woke up Quintus, et and veni quinte inquit. Come, Quintus, he says, debemus ludum orbilii quaerere. We ought ludum, accusative, school, orbilius, the genitive, school of orbilius, quaerere, to seek or question, but here it's going to be seek or search for. So we ought to search for or seek the school of Orbilius. Lente procedebant per vias urbis. Slowly they were proceeding or proceeded, went forward, per vias, through the streets, urbis, genitive, of the city. Tandem in via sacra ambulabant, et, I'm going to stop. Finally, on the sacred way, which was the name of one of the major streets in Rome, they were walking. Et and mox ad forum venerant, and soon to the forum or at the forum they had come, right? Erant had come. And soon they had come to the forum. Nec quintus nec pater umquam videerant aedificia tam magnifica. Now I kept going after this verb because I noticed that the next word, there wasn't a separation there with punctuation. It wasn't a conjunction. It was buildings. So I figured I probably needed it. So nec, neither nor, quintus, neither nor. So neither Quintus nor his father ever had seen buildings so magnificent. So neither Quintus nor his father had ever seen such magnificent buildings or buildings so magnificent. Diu stabant attoniti. For a long time they were standing astonished. Right? And again, I didn't stop after this verb because I noticed that There wasn't any punctuation or conjunction to make me stop. Dende omnia spectabant. Finally, or then, perhaps, omnia spectabant. They were looking at all things. Omnia, this is a neuter. So they're looking at everything around them. Hic erat templum vestae, ubi vergenes vestales ignem perpetuum carabant. So this should be here, or maybe a kaiko this. We'll go with here because of the macron, hic, and hic doesn't have one. Here was a temple of Vesta, where the virgins' vestals, the vestal virgins, a perpetual fire object, cared for. So here was a temple of Vesta, where the vestal virgins cared for the eternal fire. Now, this is really cool. The remains of it are still in the forum today, the ancient Forum Romanum, and this is actually something that happened. The Vestal Virgins were a group of young ladies who were taken from their families at a very young age, probably in their teenage years, more than likely. And they essentially became a part of this sisterhood, very much like the Catholic Church and the sisters and the nuns within it, where their sole job was to tend the ignum perpetuum, the eternal flame of the city, which represented the city's strength and hearth fire, or the seat, the home, the center of the city. And that was what they did. They were also consulted occasionally for religious things, but for the most part, they led a quiet religious life, caring for the sacred fire and heart of the city. And they never got married or had children. Consequently, Rhea Silvia, the mother of Remus and Romulus, was made or forced to be a Vestal Virgin. Most of them weren't forced. It was considered a high honor. But she was, because if you remember the story of Romulus and Remus, the evil uncle Amulius who took over, her evil uncle who took over, did not want her to have any children, so she was forced to be a Vestal Virgin. And then when she did have Romulus and Remus, that showed that she clearly had engaged in some kind of marital activity, which she should not have engaged in, and so she was sentenced to death, because that was and remained the decree. If a Vestal Virgin became pregnant or was caught with a man, she could be sentenced to death for her impiety. So, sidebar, but interesting, hopefully. So they saw this. They saw the Vestal Virgins caring for the fire. Ilic. And if you look to the side, there's a side note there. That means Ilic is there. So, Ilic erat Basilica Aemilia, ubi magistratus jus decebant. So, Ilic, there was the Basilica Aemilia. It's like a courthouse, where the magistrates, plural, this is actually going to be a declension we learn called fourth declension. The magistrates were saying, literally this says, we're saying the law. Again, if you look to the side, you've got a footnote that says dispensed justice, and you can see use, that's where it was coming from. And law is typically lex, but this can be like the laws of the city as well. So we'll say justice though. So where the magistrates were dispensing justice, hic erant rostra, ubi magistratus orationes ad populum habebant. There, again, we have another here. Here was the rostra, and again, you've got another footnote because you're learning all of these things about the parts of the city. The rostra is always plural, but it's singular in English, the speaker's platform. So hence why ront is plural. Here was the rostra, where the magistrates' speeches, direct object, ad populum, to the people, habebant, were having. But they're not having them, they're giving them or making them. So I would say here was the rostra, where the magistrates were giving speeches to the people. And they did. So the leaders and magistrates of the city would give speeches, and that's how folks would find out what was going on legally. It was like their version of news. Ilik steterat Korea. There had stood, we got another pluperfect, had stood the Curia. And again, look to the side, gives you a footnote, and it tells us that the Curia is the Senate House. There had stood the Curia, or the Senate House. Yam ruinis yarkebat. I'm gonna stop because even though it's only a few words, I've got a verb and punctuation. Already ruinis. It looks ablative to me, so in, with, by, ruins, yakebat, it was lying. Already it was lying in ruins. So the Senate, that original Senate house was already lying in ruins. In tumultu abusta. And so in tumult, burnt, right? In some kind of riot, perhaps. And I think the note to the side tells you that. In a riot, burnt, or burnt in a riot. Okay? Fronte erat mons Capitolinus, ubi stabat in gens templum Jovis. From the front was a mountain Capitoline. It's really the Capitoline Hill. It's not actually a mountain. But we are getting this idea of the city, and they're walking through it and they're viewing it. So in front of it was the Capitoline Hill. So we have these ruins of the old Senate House, and then the Curia, and then in front of it is this big hill. Okay, so big that it's called Mons here, like mountain, where was standing a huge temple, Jovis, of Jupiter. So a huge temple of Jupiter was standing there. Omnia Deus spectaverant. As we go forward, I won't be giving in-depth little notes for you anymore. I will simply be translating for you and reading the Latin. For a long time, all things they had looked at. Cum Flaccus vini fili inquit. When Flaccus says, "Come, son, Romae Deum monebimus." At Rome for a long time we will remain. Omnia haec saepe videbis. All of these things, haec omnia, often you will see. A foro discesserunt colim queascederunt. From the forum they departed, and they ascended the hill. Mox ad ludum Orbilii advenerunt. Soon to the school of Orbilius they had come. Extra januam ludis deterunt. Outside the door of the school they stood. Pueros audire poterant recitantes et orbilium eos corrigentem. They were able to hear the boys reciting and Orbilius correcting them. So they were able to hear the boys reciting, and they were able to hear Orbilius correcting them. You need to supply that idea that they're able to hear the boys reciting, and they're able to hear Orbilius correcting them. Non tamen intra verunt. However, they did not enter. Flaccus veni Quinte, he says. Come, Quintus, he says. Domicilium debemus unire et nova vestimenta imere. Come, Quintus, he says. We ought to find a domicile, right? Place for you to live and to buy new clothes. Quintus paterque e media urbe discesserunt. Quintus and his father from out of the middle of the city departed, and et procedebant ad suburram ubi pauperes habitabant, and proceeded to the suburbs where the poorer folks were living. Ibi noli erunt aedes magnae, sed altae insulae, in quibus habitabunt multae familiae. There, um, there, not, there none were, great houses. So there were not great houses. There were no great houses there, but tall or high apartment buildings. Insula is island, but when it's plural, it's apartment building, in which were living many families. Viae sordidae erunt et arta. The roads were dirty and narrow. Narrow is good there. The roads were dirty and narrow. Multi homines huc illuc currebant. Many men were running here and there, huc illuc, ubique clamor et tumultus, everywhere, a shout and a riot. Mox ad vestiarium venerunt, and soon they came to a closed shop. Flaccus quinto togam praetextam et tunicam candidam emit. Flaccus bought for Quintus a toga praetexta, which is like a fancier toga. It's the signal that, you know, you're a citizen, you're an adult. It's a purple bordered toga and a white tunic. Quintus, qui vestimenta tam splendida numquam habuerat patri gratias agit. Quintus, who had never had such splendid clothing, gave thanks to his father. Dende in suburbum processerunt, and then they proceeded into the suburbs. Et domicilium quaerebant, where they're going to seek, or where they were seeking, a place of residence for him, a lodging. Well, I hope that this helped you, hearing the Latin and reading through all of this. And I would just like to leave you with this image of Rome and of where they were. You can see here's the Basilica Aemilia, which is like, again, kind of like a courthouse. Here's the Curia, which would have been the old Senate house, and the Rostra, where that stage, that platform where they would have given speeches. And we see the Via Sacra here, the sacred way, and the house of the Vestals, the temple of the Vesta, where our ladies, our Vestal virgins, are tending the flame, the eternal flame of the city, ignem perpetuum. Right? We are going to learn more about the city and more about what happens to Quintus. But for now, valete discipuli et discipuli.